So 3 years ago, I joined a team bonding exercise with my previous employers, and we did an exercise called DISC. DISC. It was not only a lot of fun, it really was the most eye-opening exercise related to my behavior and approach when it comes to my work life. So today, I wanted to give you a free mini session with the trainer himself. We're also on Facebook. I want you to get your pen and paper ready. If you're driving, do not do that. Phil Bedford, who is the MD and founder of the Rebel Networker and Incentive Marketing and Management Consultant, is with us today. How are you doing, Phil?
I'm fantastic.
So very briefly, before we did this exercise, I had to go and find Phil. It was taking place in a hotel. And I saw a crowd of people, didn't know what he looked like. And I went, Phil, is that you? Hi, Phil. And he said to me 5 minutes after, he said, I know exactly what your behavior is and what it's labeled as just by the way you greeted me. And he got it spot on. So let's break this down. What exactly is DISC, D-I-S-C?
DISC is a measurement tool that allows us to analyze the behavior of somebody, the way they do tasks. And it was developed in the 20s by the same gentleman, oddly enough, who thought of Wonder Woman.
I love Wonder Woman. No wonder I love this exercise.
So his name was William Marsden. And it was, so what he'd done is he's developed a way of recognizing there's ultimately 4 different behaviors
that we all
people
have.
recognize. Everybody has them.
Okay.
We're all a blend on the whole, but we are a mixture of the 4. And what this does is this simple assessment allows us to recognize which one we are.
Yeah, but some might have more of the other, right?
Absolutely.
And so when we were doing, we're going to go through it, but when we were doing the exercise, it made me realize why maybe if I was in sales, how I approach my sales technique or how I approach my networking technique. So first of all, before we go through it, what are the main benefits of actually doing this exercise? And is it just for your career or is it for your personal life too?
Well, they actually take this and they apply it in many different ways to work, as in what you'd be good at, leadership styles, sales, networking, team bonding. So it can be applied across the spectrum. You might even want to risk it with your husband or wife and see what you can find out there, although that's a tough one to get.
We don't want any divorces on the show today, Phil. So let's go through each letter one by one and briefly explain what they mean before we start doing the exercise.
Well, it's worth mentioning here that DISC is the standard. There's a number of different programs, and what they've done is taken the same thing and give them colors or animals or something like that. But the first one we'll look at was D, or dominance, and that is really someone who's task orientated. They want to win. They like being in charge. Everything's fast, and they want to get to the bottom. They just want to know how much they're going to earn or what result you want.
I know a lot of people like that. Okay, I
is influence. So these are fun-loving people. You can always spot them because they have a massive smile. If they're not having fun, they're not interested. Tend to be creative, very enthusiastic, and life and soul of the party.
That's me, isn't it, Phil?
You reckon?
Oh, we're going to find out. I thought that would be me. Okay. He's like, yeah, right. Okay, S. What does that stand for?
S is sociability. So that is somebody, again, who loves people. But the difference is they're much more comfortable one-on-one. They're super loyal. They like to take their time with things. They don't particularly like change. And they really care about the environment.
Oh, okay. Sounds like Gen Zs and millennials. And C.
C is consistency. So there we're looking at people who are, again, they like to take their time. They're very analytical. They seek perfection. And they tend to be people like engineers, computer analysts, architects. So perfection.
So when we did this, I was called the promoter. Is this where you're saying sometimes you can be called animals, sometimes it can be DISC? So if you had to break that down into animals, could you do that so we get a visual idea?
Oh, you're really putting me on the spot now, right?
Yeah, or colours, whatever, something else. What would be the equivalent? Because you called me the promoter when we did it.
Yeah, so what we use in Incentive, which is one of my companies, we have a global standard. And so what we do, we find that the words we use are a little bit easier to remember because DISC people start to forget. So for the D, we call that a go-getter.
Yeah, yes.
People who know what they want, they go out and get it, they make it happen.
Yeah.
Boom, finished.
Yeah.
The I, we would call a promoter, which is what you've mentioned a few times. And that's someone that's good at getting things moving, like promoting events.
Life of the party.
Life of the party. Our S, we call a nurturer.
Yeah.
Speaks for itself, right? Someone who likes to care for deep relationships. And then our C was our examiner. to look into detail, to make perfection. So we find by putting those terms on there, it's a little bit easier to remember.
Yeah, I feel you have a visual idea and you can connect to one straight away. It doesn't mean that I am fully the promoter, but when you said it, I could link to it straight away. So I kind of like those terms. Okay, so we're going to practice this exercise after the break.
More of Afternoons with Helen Farmer is coming up next.
On the UAE's number.
This is Afternoons on Dubai Eye 103.8.
Now, our prize stays pretty healthy. At the end of the week, one listener will win a 6-month weight management prize worth over 11,000 dirhams at Glue Care Health. And they're a team of passionate professionals that bring the best of medicine and technology. So all you need to do is answer this question. According to one sports and exercise study, who takes more steps per day? Is it men or is it women? Now, I didn't say who talks. I said who walks more per day. Text us on 4001 or WhatsApp us on 04871 5500. We have Phil Bedford with us, and we're going to find out what personality traits you have in the workplace.
Life balance.
So get your pen and papers ready. If you're driving, just listen to this. Do not take your hands off the steering wheel. So, Phil, what's the first thing we need to do to figure out of DISC? I feel like adding the O there, disco.
I was ready to dance.
What we need to do to find out what kind of personalities we have to fit the job that we are working in.
Okay, it's worthwhile saying that normally you do a bit of an assessment here, which could take you 20 minutes or 30 minutes, okay?
Yeah.
So the exercise we're going to do now is going to be super superficial.
Yes.
Okay? And also a lot of people believe they're one thing and they're not quite. They're
Like
actually
me.
something else, right? So what we're going to do now is based on your beliefs, so it's probably not going to be 100%, but it'll be a bit of fun.
Okay, let's do this, everyone. Get your pen and paper.
Alrighty. So what we're going to do, you're going to draw a simple cross
Okay.
with the lines vertically and one horizontally.
Yes.
So a simple cross.
Yes.
Then what you're going to do in the top left corner is write the letter D. Mm-hmm. In the top right corner, I.
Yeah.
Underneath that, you're going to do S. And then on the remaining one, which is bottom left, C.
Okay.
Okay. Now put your pencil in the center of the, or pen, whatever you got in the center there.
Of that
and what
cross?
We're going to, I can see you're ready to go. Like,
I'm so ready
you're
to
so
go.
ready to go.
I want to see if I'm still a promoter. Okay.
Okay. So in a nutshell, when you, in life, do you move quickly? Do you think quickly? Do you act quickly? Do you tend to do everything quickly? Or are you more measured? Do you like to take your time?
Since I last saw you, I've slowed down, and I think that's to do with age and maturity.
Okay.
So I'm kind of in the middle.
Okay. But on the whole, if you had to go faster or slower,
Fast.
what would it be? Okay. So move your pen up.
Up,
If
the
you're
cross.
more moderate and measured, then you move your pen down.
Okay.
Okay. Now, next question is, in life,
Yes.
what's more important? Is it a task, getting the job done,
Yeah.
numbers and things like that? Or is it people,
People,
having fun?
always.
Okay. So if you're people, you go to the right.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're task, you go to the left.
Okay.
So you should find yourself in a quadrant.
Yes.
And yours is?
I'm
There you go.
still the promoter.
Still there.
It's not, that's a very, very quick way of doing it, though. So let me ask you a question. I mean, there's more to it. Where our session was a good 2 hours, and we kind of examined everybody in the room. Let's say if I'm an I, and give me an idea of what I'm like in the workplace if I'm a promoter, if I'm an I.
Have you ever been in a car and you're driving somewhere and it's like, oh gosh, where was I going?
I do that all the time.
And then you suddenly call someone and says, where was the party again? Where was the office?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm on autopilot. I've got so many things going on in my head.
You got so many things going on, right?
Yeah.
So your eye is always trying to do everything to the last minute. They
Yeah.
got so many hands in so many baskets. They're doing so many things that they often leave late.
Yeah, and I'll leave the house and think, I left my car keys in their house. I do it all the time, things like that.
Exactly. So they tend to arrive a little bit late.
I don't like to arrive late. That's one thing I don't do, actually. I'm very good with that. But, yeah.
And again, the thing is with DISC is it's just our behaviors, our tasks, right? The way we do jobs. Behind that, we're going to have things like motivations and values and all that, which can then override or influence the task, right? So at the end of the day, this is just one guiding point.
So let's say, for example, somebody has done the DISC exercise and they say, look, I need to be more like the D or the S because it's not working for me in my workplace. Can you shift it?
Yeah, in fact, a lot of people learn to. So you could have a completely fun-loving character like your eye. Now imagine if that eye lives and works in a place with a load of examiners, people who are very detail-orientated, very quiet, very introverted. They might start to adapt. Okay, and so we can adapt to our environment, but deep down we'll always remain the way we were. And what happens is, particularly is if we call it our adapted style. So you've learned to do it. But the problem is when you're under stress, you revert to your natural style.
Because I think it's just what your natural ability is what you'll do, isn't it? It's just normal. Can anybody do any job? Or does this really separate according to where your strengths lie?
We're definitely going to have natural tendencies. So for your examiner, for example, going into detail, looking at numbers, following process, well, that's going to really appeal to somebody. Whereas the complete opposite of that would be your promoter. They don't really like details. Near enough is good enough. Right, so you're going to have a natural tendency for certain jobs, but we can learn. The only thing is it's often tougher. If it's not our natural style, it can be tougher to do that, which is obviously tiring.
What are you?
Well, here's the thing, right? We're all a mix, as we've said before.
Yeah.
And what we tend to do is look at our two your most dominant and your secondary style. So I'm a go-getter promoter, almost exactly.
Yes.
But tiny bit higher on my promoter.
That's why we get on so well, Phil.
It is.
What about with marriages? Let's say, is it a good way to say, look, D goes with I, or they're compatible, or can you do something like that?
Well, they say opposites attract, right?
Yeah. Have you tried it with couples? Have you done?
You can, yeah, you can see it. I mean, you quite often find, like you just said, two people right on the face of it, immediately they'll get on well if they have the same style. They really attract. But we know there is no definitive on this, but you often find that they say opposites attract. You complete each other. So if you have one partner who's one way and the other partner's the other way, then you can actually become that entity that's more powerful and more useful, I think.
So you have a real life story where someone's actually really achieved quite a good success by doing this exercise.
Yeah,
Can you
absolutely.
tell me about that?
Yeah, it actually happened to one of my colleagues, and they'd tried to meet a client. They'd gone in there, they'd met them, and they'd not closed the deal. It was a massive deal, and we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, and didn't close it. And they left the meeting and then attended this work session with one of my colleagues.
Yeah.
And afterwards they went, oh my goodness, I'm a complete go-getter. This is the salesperson. And the person they were meeting was a nurturer. Now, things with nurturers is you don't push them. You don't get intense. They can get, if somebody's super confident and a little bit pushy, they can really go backwards and run in the opposite direction.
That,
Yeah. And so what he realized is what he'd done. So he went back again, managed to get back in there, and then just sat down and just talked about family and all that kind of thing. And a couple of weeks later, closed the deal.
So the whole point of this is once you identify what you are, you can identify what others are, and you can approach them in a way that would be more comfortable for them, and
Absolutely.
It works, and that's how it works.
Well, we've all heard of the golden rule. The golden rule is treat people how you want to be treated.
Absolutely.
Well, there's a guy called Tony Alessandro, and he developed what he called the platinum rule. And he said, well, how about we treat people how they want to be treated?
Nice. But you need to figure that out first.
And that's the great thing about this. I mean, you can do this assessment with a little pen and do it, but once you've done enough of this, you can actually watch somebody walk in the room by the way they dress, they smile, they don't smile, and you can get a fair good idea where they're going to be on that quadrant.
And that's exactly how he judged me, literally in 2 minutes. If people want to try this out, how can they contact you? Where can they follow you? Because it's a great thing to do with your company employers.
I mean, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, Phil Bedford on LinkedIn. Or my website is therebelnetworker.com.
Okay. And Phil, I just want to say from one promoter to the next, it's always fun being with you.
And yourself.